Go ahead and get started with the recording. Thank you again so much for joining me today. I am Ricky Gonzalez. I am the Director of Student Life and Development here at El Camino College, and I also serve as an Institutional Conduct Officer. Specifically under my purview, I work with faculty, staff, administrators, and students in any form of alleged breakage of Administrative Procedure 5500, which is our Student Code of Conduct. We're going to go into that a little bit later on. And there's a lot of new policies that are kind of going into place. So with that being said, let me go ahead and get started here. Can everyone see my presentation? Thumbs up.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so new policies, new tools, new voices. A little bit of today's overview, right? There's going to be a new overview of our conduct reporting form. We're going to go into updates in regards to our conduct policy, specifically our AP 5500 and student conduct best practices. We're going to talk about the Stop Hazing Act, which was enacted earlier on in January of 2025 and is now something that is going to be required with training and a couple of other things. We're going to go into AB 1575, which is a new requirement also coming down from the state, which is our conduct advisor interest form, and kind of go over a little bit of the nuances of our due process within the student conduct process. So how many of you here are familiar with our board policy and Administrative Procedure 5500? Couple? Show hands, maybe some messages. Okay, perfect. I see some there. So our BP and AP 5500 is specifically the definitions and the standards of student conduct that would fall under my purview, specifically as a conduct officer, to have students follow, faculty as well, in the classroom, in our service areas, in our respective centers, anywhere on campus, baseline and foundationally speaking, the standards of student conduct apply to all students, right? Student conduct here at El Camino must conform to federal and state laws and district policies. Standards will apply to all students on district-owned facilities or controlled property or at district-sponsored and or supervised functions or electronic media. Violations of such laws, policies, and procedures will lead to student disciplinary action, which then activates through our board policy 5500. So think of the board policy and the Administrative Procedure 5500 as the definitions by which you as a faculty member, as a staff member, as a student, as an administrator, if you witness or experience any form of these breakages of those policies, you can submit a report. Every time you submit a report, it is treated as an allegation, right? From there, AP 5520 would activate, right? Which is our due process, or the purpose of this one specifically, it's the standards of student conduct and the process behind it, how it gets investigated, the student rights aspect, the meetings that are required, that are recommended to attend, required to attend, and all that good stuff, the resources that students have at their disposal in order for them to be able to understand their rights, to be able to understand the timeline as well, right? Because when a report is submitted, there is a timeline by law, by state statute, by Title V that we have to keep in order for us to be able to adequately be able to investigate, give everyone the opportunity to give us context regarding any misconduct that may have allegedly occurred, and then from there have those restorative conversations with our students so that we can ensure that their journey here as successful as possible, while at the same time looking at not only restorative practices, but developmental sanctions that can help a student be that much more acclimated to be successful in their time here at El Camino College. So to kind of talk to you guys about the new conduct reporting form, prior to the start of the summer term, there was a new form that was sent out to the academic deans, the student services managers, and a variety of different administrators to start connecting faculty to this new reporting form. How many of you are familiar with the Maxian case management system or have ever filled out a Maxian case incident referral form? Couple? Okay, couple. So as such, right, I want to go ahead and take you through a quick walkthrough. What you guys may be familiar with is this form has gone through a bit of a change. This change, both aesthetically and also reporting wise, was in consultation with the Student Success Committee, in consultation with faculty members, in consultation with other administrators, and in consultation with students, right? In regards to what is the best way for anyone to report any allegations of student code of conduct violations, right? And so the report expanded a little bit to talk about what informal reports look like, formal reports, because that came from feedback from a lot of different bodies, right? Where sometimes things occur. There have been interventions that have happened in the classroom, in the space, in the service area, in one-on-one meetings with that student or with that individual. And from those conversations, and there was some sense of closure, right? Like there was that developmental conversation, a restorative conversation, and all in all, it seems to have been, handled as adequately as possible, right? Those are more than welcome and allowed to happen. One of the reasons that we also included the informal reports is because it still needs to be reported. As we all know, some of these incidences may not be isolated to you as an individual. They may have been observed in the library. They may have been observed in other classrooms. They may have been observed in other service areas. They may have been observed all across campus, right? And so this isn't meant to have one student have all these multiple reports and figuring out a way to get them, right? It's really a way for us as a campus to be adequately informed of all the contextual reasons why a student may be reported to our respective offices, right? Because I also am part of the Warrior Safety Network, which is for those familiar, a behavioral intervention team. We just call it Warrior Safety Network here at El Camino, but it's a group of individuals from our campus case manager, student health services, special resources, campus PD, Title IX, conduct officer, and a variety of other areas that kind of come together to figure out ways to best support and scaffold our students to, have all the resources and for these types of incidences to not occur, right? So even in informal reports, as you guys will see it as we kind of go in there, informal is just purely for documentation purposes. And the follow-up is you, right? You've already done that follow-up. It's just kind of closing that loop. But if there are any incidences beyond just your individual experience with that person, then we as a behavior intervention team, as a Warrior Safety Network, as a conduct officer, as different individuals may still reach out to that student just to kind of check in on them, just to kind of do that, right? Then we have the formal reports. Those require the student to meet with the conduct officer to discuss about alleged code violations regarding any form of breakages of Administrative Procedure 5500. So for those not familiar with Administrative Procedure 5500, right, it specifically highlights what academic dishonesty looks like. And we're not limited to just these definitions as a whole, but it kind of provides a student an overview of like, here's some forms of what is considered academically dishonest. Here's a form of what's considered disruptive behavior, inappropriate conduct or expression. Here's a form of drug, alcohol, cannabis smoking, unlawfulness, right? Theft, robbery, damage, sexual, gender-based misconduct. That is very closely worked on with our Title IX office, right? So Title IX typically takes the lead on that. If they do their investigative process and it is found to have been some sexual or gender-based misconduct, they would then refer it to me for the conduct side of things. Unlawful discrimination, harassment, threatening, violent behavior, weapons, possessions on campus, misuse of facilities, and miscellaneous. So this kind of serves as a blueprint for how we, in my role specifically, interprets policy to the students for any form of allegations, right? And so that's where the formal reports would come in. We also kind of talk to the students about what academic dishonesty looks like here, right? The student has the right to file an appeal for a decision regarding academic dishonesty to the dean or the department of school which alleged dishonesty occurred. Look at our Administrative Procedure 5520, because as we know, every student, just like all of us, has rights. Those rights are spelled out here in regards to what the overview of the disciplinary process looks like, right? The time limits that are imposed. We have 40 business days of the date at which the conduct took place in order for us to be able to reach out to the student, connect with the student, have that conversation with the student, and investigate our processes. What the meeting looks like and how it takes place. Upon completion in the review, a summary of all these things are given to the student, right? The student has an opportunity to appeal those decisions how sanctions are determined. From there, if there's any sanctions that the student does not agree upon, they have a time limit as well regarding what those appealable reasons are and stuff like that, right? So all in all, that's how our process is kind of laid out here, right? New to this report and new to our college is the new hazing piece, which I'm going to go into a little bit later. But as faculty members, as administrators, as staff members, we are now legally required reporters for any form of hazing incidences that occur in any of our spaces. I know a lot of the times hazing is seen as exclusively in the in the four-year institutions, institutions with housing, institutions that this is run a little bit more prevalent, excuse me. However, it is now something that federal legislation requires the California community colleges and other two-year campuses to also be required to report and or investigate and or have a mechanism to report and investigate. So we're going to kind of go into that a little bit. And then some of the things that the report must include, what discipline meetings look like, right? So that everyone has an idea whether it's the individual reporting party or the receiving party of what those disciplinary conversations look like. And then what constitutes a removal from class, right? So not only that, we also have links to all the different policies here, as well as the Administrative Procedure 5530, which is our student rights and grievances administrative procedure that kind of goes into the specific student rights aspect of a lot of this reporting across the campus, not just isolated to conduct, but any form of that, right? So the way you fill out this report, first, last name, position, title, phone number, nature of this report. Right now, my reporting form is only for 3 reasons: violations of the Student Code of Conduct, potential fraudulent student enrollment in your courses, because I work very closely with admissions and records and our registrar and enrollment services. After census, there is no mechanism in our processes and procedures for us to drop the student besides conduct. So I know this typically affects our online courses and it affects our first and second 8-week courses because census is very tight and there may not be something that on the first or second day of class clearly illustrates that a student may or may not be possibly fraudulent. So that's why we have this form here. And then now campus hazing, right? The urgency of the report, normal, urgent, the date of the incident, specific location, also different here. These are taken directly off of our administrative procedure in regards to like the specific definitions. So this helps on our end know what definition it is that you guys are looking to possibly allege that the student may have violated. And that helps center the conversation to kind of really tackle some of those things, right? This was also done in close working relationship with some of our faculty who kind of also experienced a couple of other things, right? We've experienced issues that may not be, again, our Administrative Procedure 5500 is not all inclusive and it allows for some extensions. And some of these things here, specifically like potential fraudulent activity, student hazing, some of those things aren't on our Administrative Procedure 5500, but are requirements that we have to investigate. So all those things are here as well. As we kind of continue on with that, we talk about a very detailed description of the incident concerning on the specific concise language. At minimum, please include who, what, where, when, and why. Per AP 55, reports must include detailed explanation of the incident. We asked the question that it is a requirement. Do you want it to be a formal meeting, right? Student will be required to meet with the disciplinary officer, or informal for the purposes of documenting in case behavior is repeated, right? And then what types of interventions we did, whether it's you as a faculty member, the staff member reporting, right? The reporting party. Please describe in detail which the steps that you've taken regarding the violations, where campus police called. Sometimes it's not you particularly calling them. Sometimes you're dealing with the situation, campus police comes, things occur. So that's why we also added the add or no piece, right? And then we also included space for you guys to be able to upload any documents or supplemental information that can just give me and the team as much context as possible when we have that meeting with that student, right? In lieu of the current reorganization that has happened campus-wide, the divisions have been updated and the appropriate deans and or interims and or acting individuals that oversee those areas will now also properly get channeled to get the copy of the report and follow up with you, right? Because In lieu of myself as the institutional conduct officer, the deans in your respective areas also act as supplemental conduct officers for the respective divisions and stuff like that. So they also need to be made aware if their area is having any form of misconduct and stuff like that. And a lot of the times that happens with conversations that you guys have with your deans and or associate deans. But this is a way for the report to get to them as much as it is to get to across campus, right? So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we are in terms of the new reporting form. Are there any questions in regards to that? And if there's stuff that kind of comes from that as well, we're going to address it at the end of the presentation too. Okay. Moving on to the next piece, right? Some of the things that, oh, where is the link to the form located on my ECC? So as of right now, I don't believe it's actually located on my ECC. It is located in the Student Life and Development website. It is located on the incident referral form. If you look, this presentation is going to have those links. Give me one quick second. So if we were looking for the website, if you go onto El Camino College and you just type in conduct or even student conduct El Camino College, once there, student conduct process reporting an incident, click that, you submit the form, and then from there, it takes you to the form itself. You can also just type in Maxient and stuff like that, and it'll be readily available. Going back to the presentation, sorry about that, team. Some of the things in terms of conduct best practices that I typically inform a lot of my faculty members who use the Maxient system, right? When it comes to academic dishonesty, I think one of the strangest conversations we tend to have in my office is the student gets told that they've been reported for academic dishonesty, but have never had a conversation with the faculty, right? And it's a little jarring for them to come to my office and say, hey, they're going to look into it, they're going to talk to you, they're going to do all the, which again, is all correct, but sometimes that conversation, faculty to student, student to faculty, changes the entire dynamic, right? Sometimes you get the context before I do, and that context helps relate the information so that it really informs the decision. Like, was this, genuinely an innocent mistake? Was this genuinely an opportunity for us to have a developmental conversation? Was this a genuine attempt by the student to really rectify a possible miscommunication that may have occurred here and stuff like that, right? So one of the things I highly suggest is for you guys to talk to your student about your concerns or allegations regarding academic dishonesty. Email, setting up a Zoom room. I know a lot of faculty have done that and it's proven very fruitful. Some of the grading options that you have, obviously I cannot dictate, nor does anyone dictate what happens in the classroom, but one of the best practices as I talk to faculty and stuff is consulting with your dean or associate dean in the division regarding, hey, I suspect this is going on. It's too linear. It's taking me into this direction. I think I want to do this, right? So kind of like working with your dean or associate dean in your respective areas to kind of get an idea or a feel for how you should kind of handle it. Reduction or failing grade of the assignment that's allowed as faculty members, you can assign a 0 grade as long as it's stated on your syllabi, all that good stuff. And or removing the student for 1 or 2 classes, right? In some cases, if it's so pervasive, if you've already had the conversation and it continues to keep on occurring, it's multiple class sessions and stuff like that. I'm sorry about that. That's definitely something within your purview. And it's not, in speaking to Moses Wolfenstein and Hema Perez, it also applies to your online courses because there is a way for you to remove and or hide your online course from a student, because that would be the quote unquote removal of 1 or 2 class sessions and asking for a date for when the class reappears on their Canvas. So there's even ways to do that for online sections as well, right? And then if worse comes to worse and you just have questions before you even submit the report or all that good stuff, you can involve me, right? The Director of Student Life and Development. I'm readily available. I will answer as quickly, or give me 2 to 3 business days and I'll reach back out to you with like some best practices, some advice and some things like that regarding how to best approach this, right? And that's for our academic dishonesty piece. When it comes to disruptive behavior, classroom management aspects, right? I think it's a little bit of you guys are your professors, you guys are professionals, you as your staff members, coordinators, tech specialists, all the gambit in between, right? And fellow administrators, you know how you can de-escalate a situation, right? I know our campus does some training through Campus PD. Your offices or your teams may have de-escalation sessions where you just kind of talk about best practices, maybe calling a team member over and stuff like that. But if things escalate beyond the the norm, right? And it's becoming so disruptive that other students are coming up to you or saying, hey, this is making me feel uncomfortable and thing. Consult with your dean or division director, right, of student life and development. Let me know, hey, this is what's going on in the classroom. It started with 1 or 2 sessions and I could, kind of handle it, kind of got them under into decorum, right? All that good stuff. But it keeps on popping up. Is this Maxient referral? You can submit it as a Maxient. We can have resources come to the student and connect with the student regarding that. And we would follow and go through the disciplinary procedures in line, right? Like based on the conversations, the student is truly disruptive and truly like, flipping tables and doing all those things. That's when we go into the next one, right? Like kind of threatening behavior, violence, theft, harassment, weapons, possibly sexual misconduct. That one, baseline, campus PD, right? I know there's a lot of things associated with sometimes in calling any type of law enforcement or anything like that, but our campus PD is meant to handle these extreme cases, right? Whether it's violence, whether you see someone, getting their purse stolen, harassment that happens on campus at times, any type of weapon that you possibly see, sexual, gender-based misconduct and stuff like that. Campus PD is really kind of like the first point on that, and they typically refer it to the Student Life and Development Office should it not escalate to their level, right? If they deem it and or assess it and say this isn't really our call, but because of everything that occurred, it still requires a formal report, and we're going to send that over to Student Life and Development. And then from there, I would follow up with that student, go through the disciplinary proceedings aligned with APBP 5500 and 5520. Note if it is suspected that sexual misconduct, chances are you're going to be required to fill out the Title IX reporting form, which goes through Janie Ishikawa's office, which is the director of Title IX, and her team consults and manages that one, right? One of the things that definitely has come out during the last, I would say, 2-3 semesters has been fraudulent students in online sections, right? This one in particular is a little bit more nuanced, right? We can't go into too many of the details because obviously we want to make sure that the confidentiality of some of our catching mechanisms and software mechanisms are stay intact, right? But I can tell you that typically when I go into a possible fraudulent student situation, it happens after the first 2 weeks or after census, right? And within those, as a faculty member, you really kind of know and can attest to like what is genuine student peer-to-peer like writing versus AI generated work, right? Or it could be that they're turning in prompts that just sound too robotic, too artificial, right? For a lack of a better word. And then from there, what we ask you through my form is to simply, if it's just suspected, send in the report. We think that this student is possibly fraudulent. There's some activity here that looks a little bit questionable. Our team, along with enrollment services, along with a couple of others, still do our investigative process. We have found at times where the faculty turns in the report on Monday, and then Tuesday the student shows up. It's like, no, I'm real. Like, I'm here. And then there's a conversation. They're like, how do I? It's okay. Just email us supplementally. Let us know, hey, I was able to connect with the student. They are real. This is what happened. We can dismiss the case and all that good stuff. Now, if we go through our investigative process and we find that there is some form of fraudulent activity, we will also let you know. We will take them out of your classroom and we will, work with your academic dean to kind of communicate some of those things to you as well. So I know that there's a separate process that Acting Dean of Enrollment Services, Dr. Christina Martinez, is working with your guys' deans on as we kind of clean up some of these sections and sessions prior to the start of the semester. But where I come in is really when the semester is starting and you figure out that this student may be possibly fraudulent week 5, week 6, and there's still assistance here for you. Does that all make sense? Okay. So one of the new things that's coming up that just came out in January of 2025 was the Stop Hazing Act. El Camino College is committed to providing an academic environment free of hazing. And this procedure here, as well as the website that I'm going to take you guys to, defines hazing and sets forth a procedure for reporting, investigation, and resolution of complaints of campus hazing. It protects current, former, and prospective students. This came about through an AP 3436, which is currently going through the collegiate consultation process. So if anyone is interested, you can connect with your college council representatives. There's different individuals that sit on college council that represent different groups. This policy is going to be enacted or is going to have its first read through um, in September through our policy review day. And it is our through collegiate consultation process, it will be shared with all consultation bodies, and it is going to be the policy that applies the federal definition of hazing to our campus. The federal definition is as follows: for hazing, any intentional, knowing, or reckless act committed by against another person, regardless of the willingness of such person to participate, in connection with initiation, affiliation, or continued membership in a student organization that creates a risk and or causes physical or psychological injury beyond the reasonable risk of normal participation in district or organization. Hazing may include, but is not limited to, whipping, beating, striking, electronic shocking, sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme elements, or excessive physical exertion, forced consumption of alcohol, drugs, or other harmful substances, coerced sexual acts, activities that induce fear of bodily harm or violate local, state, tribal, or federal laws. And then below is the process for how you report campus hazing, right? So to kind of give you guys a little bit more of a preview of what you guys are going to be getting, let me go back. So this is our campus hazing website. The definition for hazing is located here. Who is affected? ECC student organizations. ECC student organizations are actually further defined as student organization may include a student club, society, association, athletic team, club sports team, fraternity, sorority, band, or student government. This is not all inclusive. There are other organizations that may fall under this as the law kind of continues to progress and or gets further developed. So this website is going to be, and of course our administrative procedure is going to be the main form of us kind of informing the campus of what other organizations kind of fall into that, right? We talked about conduct pertaining to campus hazing incidents, what's prohibited, reporting hazing, similar to what the other slide had. This one kind of goes into a little bit more detail, what the investigating and disciplinary process looks like for hazing. This is a requirement from the Assembly Bill that kind of gives you a step-by-step guide as to what that looks like. As of right now, I am knocking on wood and happy to report we have had no incidences of campus hazing. Should we have any of those incidents, and kind of tells you what that would look like for us, right? Any student or employee or third party who has knowledge of hazing or feels they have been a victim of hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, or menacing is in violation of the policy and should immediately report their concerns to their director of student development or submit incident report in full. Upon receipt of any report of hazing, these are the kind of like the step-by-step guides, right? And then working with the Clary Act officer and team, we would be doing annual reporting and transparency reports that go along with the Clary Act reports that kind of go out to the campus community and the larger community as a whole. We do have some prevention and education below regarding not only helpful resources and things, but more, we also have some videos. And later on the first week of school, there's going to be some messaging coming from my office letting the campus know. And since you guys are in this room, you guys are going to be some of the first to know. There is going to be a new Keenan training assigned to you that must be completed within the academic year in order for us to meet our hazing federal statute requirements for training and or informing the campus, right? Some helpful resources, the Hazing Prevention Network, stophazing.org, NCAA Health and Safety Performance. And then we actually do have some videos on the expert panels on hazing prevention practices in athletics and student organizations. Really good find. And then here's some resources that should you choose to have, you can very much copy, print, have them in your classroom, have them refer to them on your syllabi and stuff like that. Anything to get the word out. This is also not going to be exclusively to faculty and staff and administrators. This information is going to be made readily available to our students at El Camino College as well. Similar to their Title IX trainings and a lot of other required mandated reporting trainings that they have to do, hazing is now a new training that kind of comes of that. And that has to do with, like I said, AB 1575. I'm sorry, going to the wrong slide. The Stop Hazing Act requirements through federal law. Questions, comments? I know it's a lot of information to throw at you, so by all means, if there's stuff, again, as we kind of progress through this, there's going to be more stuff to kind of go through. So recently, as in also this year, AB 1575, Katie Myers Law went into effect. For those of you who may or may not know, El Camino College, through its conduct process, Title IX process, and a lot of different processes, has it within our APs and BPs that a student is always allowed to have an advisor present in their meetings with these respective offices, whether it's Title IX, student conduct, and a couple of other ones, right? And El Camino is committed to ensuring a fair and supportive environment for all students navigating the conduct process. As this procedure affirms the student's right to have an advisor present throughout the conduct proceedings and outlines the process for notification, participation, and support. This protection applies to all current and prospective students involved in conduct matters. So what this looks like is a little bit different than what we've done before. A lot of the times, the onus and responsibility of finding an advisor was always on the student, right? And sometimes, as we know, a majority of our students are not affiliated or connected to any form of support program service or on anyone on campus, right? Unfortunately. And as such, if a student were to get reported to the conduct process and say, I kind of want someone here, I don't want my parents, I don't have sibling, or, just things like that of that nature, what this requires us to have is a list and or a running tally of individuals interested to being advisors to students who may request an advisor present during any of these conduct proceedings, right? The summary of the law is to inform students of the right to have an advisor present at the start of any conduct process, which we already do through our conduct letters and our conduct conversations. Clarify that the advisor can be a person of the student's choosing, including a trained college employee, peer, or external advocate, which kind of aligns with AB 5075 and it went into effect earlier this year in January 2025. Who qualifies as an advisor? Faculty, classified staff member, campus administrator, the peer leader, student employee, or an outside party such as a parent or mentor. However, it should be noted, and it is noted in our administrative procedure 5520 and noted in our various other procedures, advisors are not responsible for speaking on the student's behalf, but may attend meetings, offer guidance, and help ensure fairness during the process. I think a lot of the times when people hear, hey, I want you to be my advisor during this meeting, we treat it almost kind of like a criminal proceeding, like you're going to be that student's lawyer and stuff like that. Like the conduct process as a whole is not a criminal prosecution system. We specifically work within the parameters of the preponderance standard, and it is always treated as a conversation, right? It's never, I found you to break this and we caught you, right? It really is always a conversation. Like we always ask those probing questions. Why did this happen? What's going on at home? What's going on outside of school that may have affected some of these choices? What's going on in school that may have affected some of these choices, right? And again, the advisors is really there to kind of just be that support system in the room, in those conversations. It's also with the knowledge that a student at any point in time, because of FERPA requirements and regulations, can say, I want an advisor. Once they are told what's going to be discussed, they can end up saying, you know something, I actually don't want this person to hear this particular piece, have them go out of the room, in the room. And like things like that have occurred in the past, but just things of that nature kind of happen on a case-by-case basis, right? Currently, our Administrative Procedure 5520 very clearly specifies that allows El Camino College and other California community colleges follow the advisor protocol within the conduct process. Our administrative procedure has always allowed for students to bring an advisor, but again, the onus was always on the student to bring someone. This would allow us to finally have a running list of individuals willing and able to help support that student. And it's not just saying, let me sign up go in there cold feet, not even, there's going to be training that is also a requirement from the law that requires us from a conduct lens, from a possible safety network lens and stuff like that, to show and or help advise the advisors on their roles and how to be the best support system and advisor you can in these types of settings and meetings, right? So at the end of this presentation, or this particular slide here, is a student conduct advisor interest form that I am starting to collect. El Camino College is seeking faculty, staff, and administrators interested in serving as advisors for students involved in student conduct process. In accordance to AB 1575, as an advisor, you will help uphold fairness and compassion in conduct proceedings, ensuring students feel supported during a potentially challenging time. We kind of talk about the role, attend student conduct meetings at the student's request, offer guidance and emotional support during the process, help ensure the student understands their rights and procedure, maintain student privacy and neutrality, participate in a brief training to prepare for this role. There will always be training for you, for anyone who's interested, right? Qualifications, no legal background required. We welcome classified professionals, faculty members, administrators, and peer leaders. So we ask in this interest form, right? Full name, title department, email, phone number, extension. Have you previously participating in student conduct meetings or grievance processes as a panelist, union rep, et cetera? Just so that we can kind of gauge people's adaptiveness into being able to kind of like jump into these types of proceedings. Would you like to receive more information? Oh, sorry. Yeah, would you like to receive more information about training and expectations before committing? Yes, please contact me with more info. I'm ready to participate. Count me in. Not at this time, but I support the program, right? So it really is up to the individual. It's very short, right? So keeping your guys' time and everything in mind, because it's not just the conduct meeting. At times, some of the best advising that I've seen for these conduct conversations as a whole is the individuals that end up becoming those advisors for those students in these meetings do like a pre-meeting check-in. This is how we're going to get ready. Here are some things that I would suggest you highlight in regards to like, this report, all these different things, because the student is always going to get a copy of what the allegations are. And again, if going back to our best practices, faculty more likely than not say, hey, Ricky, by the way, we're going to be reporting you for this current allegation. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. I think that there was a form of academic dishonesty in your last paper. And as we had this conversation, I still am not fully convinced. So I'm going to have the conduct officer oversee that process, and they will inform me and or the dean what the outcome is, and we'll work on that together. You know what I mean? So there's always going to be some of those follow-ups and stuff like that. And then talking about due process, right? And I think this is the piece that sometimes gets kind of lost in translation. So I just wanted to be very clear. The student disciplinary process is always going to be a formal meeting with the student. During that time, we're going to go over the case. We're going to go over the student rights. We're going to go over Administrative Procedure 5500. We're going to go over Administrative Procedure 5520. We're always going to give them an opportunity to give their side of the circumstances, right? Because that's part of the due process. As a faculty, staff, or individual, or the reporting party, you have given me one side of the story. Now I need to hear from that individual the other side, right? And then from there, depending on the severity of the situation, depending on the developmental conversation, depending on all these nuances, right? Because it's always going to be a unique case, right? We proceed and go into the investigation, we go into the findings, and then typically within those conversations, we say, here's the sanctions, right? The sanctions on 5520 go from something as lenient as verbal written warnings all the way up through expulsion. I've had faculty members say, this is the first time I caught the student cheating, I want them expelled. I will tell you with 100% certainty that will never be the process here. And the only reason I say that is because I think when you guys think expulsion, you guys just think expulsion applies to here, El Camino College, here to my class, here to all these things. Expulsion at the California Community College system means I am expelling them from all 117 California community colleges, right? That is something that the chancellor's office needs to get involved in, and El Camino's board of trustees needs to get involved in, and our executive leaders have to get involved in. And it's just not something that is done willy-nilly, right? And what I always tend to tell people, we can't go from one extreme to another, right? If it's the first time the student's committed something and no one's had that developmental conversation, I can't go for straight to 100, right? Like that's not a developmental conversation, suspension, expulsion, all these things, like they teach lessons, sure, right? But those aren't the lessons that we're trying to teach them, because all we did is teach them a process being applied to them negatively. It's not a restorative conversation. It's not a developmental one, right? And so I always try to treat it from a perspective of growth mindsets, right? And the outcomes must remain confidential by all parties. During the outcome letter process, students are told this is your business. It is confidential to you. You, the conduct officer, and associated conduct officer, which is typically the deans, and the faculty members, those individuals involved in the report are the only ones who will ever know what the outcomes are to these cases. I, as a conduct officer, will never be able to have someone just come in, a random person. Hey, Ricky, I was working with the student and they said they met with you. Like, did this happen? Can't talk about it. You're only ever going to hear what that student, that faculty, like faculty members baseline, it's breaking FERPA. It's breaking Title V regulations. You cannot share the outcome of a case with another faculty member at that water cooler, right? Because it creates an unbiased opinion or circumstance to that student. Let's say I'm that student. I had a really bad experience with Professor John, and then Professor Jaden is going to be my next professor, and then John and Jaden are really good friends. And it turns out that John told Jaden, hey, by the way, I think Ricky, in my class cheated like at least 3 times, man. And so just be on the lookout for that. Water cooler talk, right? And then Professor Jaden already has a skewed perspective of that student. And then that student, should they ever hear from that faculty or from anyone else through this process, hey, someone knew about your business that wasn't involved in that business, then they have a grievance on their hands. Then they have an opportunity to submit a Title V breakage, confidentiality breakage with FERPA, all that good stuff. And in some extreme cases, breaking confidentiality in these processes is tenure revocable, right? That's how important and confidential this process is, right? One of the best things I always tell faculty, balance FERPA with your need to know. The I want to know may not be the need to know. The need to know is this happened in my classroom, in my space, in my area with this particular student. And if for whatever reason, again, that need to know gets to you, connect with the director of SLD, myself, and we can walk through that process. We can ask the student. Sometimes students are amiable to say, yes, you can release this information to, but we always have to have the student in those conversations in the mix of these things, right? Because this is their student conduct file. It is confidential at all times. And as such, I think a lot of the times we don't have all the nuances and context of what happens in these meetings, but the due process is always followed to the best of its ability. So that was a lot of stuff to go through in 45 minutes. This is my contact information. You can always email me at rigonzalez@elcamino.edu. My office extension is 3504. I am always readily available for anyone who wants to get any nuances, discuss any situations regarding your classroom, your space, or anything like that, potentially filling out a Maxion report. I'm always available to have those conversations, help you ascertain, does this require us to fill out a Maxion report? Does it not require us to fill out a Maxion report? What does that look like? And we're always there to be able to lend a hand. But I also, like I said, with the last couple of minutes here, want to leave the space open for any conversations, any follow-up, anything that you guys want to discuss. I know it's a lot. Wiley, what's up?
Yeah, so a quick questions regarding the conduct advisor application form.
Sure.
So to my understanding, we're allowed, so that we're allowed to fill out that form if we're interested in being a conduct advisor, right?
Correct.
So if there's any kind of discrepancies with the student, so if a student does not invite anyone who fills out the form is automatically can be automatically selected.
Correct. So what I thank you for asking the logistical question, right? So let's say a student comes into the meeting or lets us know, because in our letter, it very clearly indicates if you would like an advisor to be, associated with your case and or to bring an advisor, please let us know via email, and we kind of give them the instructions to follow. Let's say that student sends us an email and says, Ricky, I am interested in having an advisor present. However, I don't have anyone or I don't know who to bring. Can you help me figure that out? Thank you, student. I am more than happy to help you figure that out. Here is a current list or tally of individuals who have shown interest in being advisors. We would be able to kind of share the names with them and say, here's who they are, the department that they work for, and all that good stuff. Is there anyone here that you may have had any, you know, interactions with, or anyone that you would be interested in maybe having as your advisor during this conduct meeting? And then from there, the student says, yeah, here's like my 2 or 3 choices, right? Perfect. Let me reach out to them. Let me see if they're available. Based off of your availability, we would reach out to those advisors and say, hey, you have been someone who has been selected by a student to serve on one of the conduct meetings. This is the availability that they were able to share with me. Do any of these dates and times work with you? And we would also ask the student, would you also be willing for us to share your email with those individuals so that if they are interested, they can reach out and connect with you and all that good stuff. And then from there, I would leave it up to the discretion of the individual advisors to then have those meetings with the student and kind of get everything ready for their first meeting, kind of go over everything that we talk about in terms of AP 5500, 5520, kind of giving them the baseline of expectations of advisors so that the student knows, the advisor knows, and then we have the conversation together. Does that make sense, Wiley?
Yes, okay. And it does kind of lead to my next question then. So if the student's not able to select an advisor at all, they know no one on the app who's no one who submitted that application form. And you select their advisor for them. Is that said student allowed to change a conduct advisor if they do not feel comfortable with said advisor? Because it does,
So,
'cause I don't know, they won't have whether even if say we were to have if they have a pre-meeting with the conduct advisor and they say, okay, based on the meeting, I don't think this person will be the best fit to assist me in this or even be my advisor, be my support in this
correct.
instance, would they be allowed to change to another conduct advisor?
Yes. And then obviously, any advisor who may have heard any confidential or pertinent information is also under that confidentiality notice where it's like, now know this about this student in this particular case. You are in this confidential sphere. Do not share any of this information, even though you were not the selected advisor for what ended up happening. The student is allowed to stop a meeting at any time, right? And then from there say, Ricky, I'd like to reschedule. I think this individual may not be the best advisor for me. And typically that shouldn't happen, I would say, live in a meeting, because there would have been an opportunity for you as the advisor and the students who have met prior to our meeting to kind of get to know each other and figure out, is this the best fit for me? Because those would be kind of like some of the things that I would kind of go through in the training as to how to become an advisor, best practices for advising, and all that good stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay. And my last question is that if you have to select an advisor you're in, would you mainly just, I know when we fill out the application, we could specify what experiences we had in regards to we ever did any kind of conduct advising before in the past or any kind of consultations in the past. Will
Sure.
you try to select an advisor who has at least some level of experience in that, some level of experience with know what the student may be going through or any
Dealing with
discrepancies, or is it
ex-
mainly just at possible at random?
no, I would definitely take that into account. I would also need the student to tell me that point blank. Me as the conduct officer cannot automatically assign an advisor. Just I would want it to be a joint conversation of the student. I'm like, of this entire list, there's no one here. Like, what is it exactly that you're looking for? So I would have that kind of pre-meeting with the individual to kind of figure out, okay, if that's what you're looking for, here's some colleagues that I feel can maybe help you in this, right? If it's something to do with academic dishonesty in, the mathematical department or something like that, and there's a couple of math faculty there, or because again, there's also administrators. I would be able to bring in some nuanced individuals that may be able to kind of like help that student understand some of those perspectives as well. So I'll take all of that into consideration. Sometimes I would even, as this process is also new for me, just as much as it is for everybody, right? I would always attempt to make sure and ensure that we are as equitable in terms of it's not consistently only Wiley getting the students, right? And that the wealth gets passed around so that students can have um, a wide breadth of individuals to kind of help support them, right? At different levels, right? If it's a faculty issue, I may assign them a faculty member from a different department or division. If it's something happening at a center, I may assign them someone from the classified teams to kind of go over some of their things. If it's someone like campus police and all these different things, like there's other ways for us to kind of to kind of interact with that student. And as I'm figuring this process out, obviously, I also need to determine how many faculty, staff, administrators, or individuals are even interested, right? Because if it is, something I don't want anyone associated with El Camino College in the sense of like faculty, staff, administrator, I actually want a peer-to-peer. I want to bring my friend in. That's also allowable through this law, right? And even like training students to some of these things is going to be really important and something that I have to further develop with my team to kind of like really encompass some of these things and nuances that kind of come up from the conversations, Wiley. But great questions. Does that kind of help? Sorry.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Anya? I'm sorry, Anya, are you speaking? I see you're unmuted, but I don't hear anything. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you,
Okay,
but you're right. I can't hear Anya.
sorry. I wasn't sure if I froze for any reason. Anya, if anything, you can type the question in the chat. Oh, moment. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Still not working. Anya, if you want, we can also connect offline just to kind of account for everyone's.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, perfect.
Okay, apologies. I don't know what happened to my computer settings.
It's okay.
But yeah, the question is about the fake students.
The fraudulent?
Yeah, fraudulent students option on the form.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to, make sure that I'm clear on the process. It sounds like there was a change in the process, right? So like last semester, we couldn't remove those students from the class, but this semester we can. Is that a fair statement?
We could always remove them if we catch them before census. Once census has gone by, because of Title V regulations, it is not possible through the registrar's office to automatically remove these students from the classroom. So the only way to remove a student from the classroom, legally speaking, that's a Title V allowable, is through the conduct process and through the conduct process findings. So if I were to work with our enrollment services and our academic partners to find students in the classes that are fraudulent after census, right? So after the first 2 weeks or the first 2 class sessions from 8-week sessions and all that good stuff, then that is where I would get activated through my form to be allowed to then submit the formal Maxian report, have it documented for Title V auditing purposes, and request the registrar remove that student from the classroom, because that's the only way through Title V and through legal federal requirements to remove a student after census. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah. I was also a little confused about like what remove means, because is it the same as drop, or is it?
Yes, it would be an administrative drop.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And I think like you mentioned at some point during the presentation that they can be removed from Canvas shell, but it
Yeah.
sounded like it was kind of not a drop, it's just kind of a suspension.
Exactly. So let's say, and this is outside of fraudulent students, right? Let's not even think about fraud. Let's say Ricky is one of your online students, right?
Yeah.
And consistently in the class, you have a conversation with him and say, Ricky, this discussion post is a copy and paste of what Wiley just posted before you.
Yes.
That's not, that's not allowed. I'm having this conversation or message with you. Please have it be your own work, all that stuff. Okay, sounds good, professor. And then the next posting session comes up and I post Patrick's information from one, and it's just like, okay, Ricky, now this is academic dishonesty. As a faculty member within Administrative Procedure 5520, you are allowed to remove a student from a class for 1 to 2 sessions, right? As a faculty member for in-person classes, it's really easy. Ricky, please remove yourself. Don't come to this class and don't come to the next class, right? Online for our Canvas courses, it's a little harder because I just have access to your Canvas shell and all that stuff, right?
Right.
However, if you work with my office and with Moses, we have figured out a way so that your course this would become that online equivalent to removing them from the class in person. Does that make sense?
Right.
Which
Yes.
would hide your Canvas course from that student for 1 to, at the maximum, 2 class sessions.
Uh-huh.
And then that would be your allowance in saying, that's how I want to, if you will, remove the student from my class. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
there's an end date and then the class would reappear the following date. Does that make sense?
that's exactly what I was asking.
Yeah.
And the example that you just, showed us is exactly what I was, experiencing. So, and to add to that, I think like this is a great starting point. I was also just I don't know if it's possible or maybe like possible in the future, but it would be great to log the course to the student until they have a conversation with someone, and say I will not do it anymore.
Yeah. That one's a little bit more case by case, right? Because as you know, sometimes they send you those messages like at 3 in the morning, and then you get back to them by the time the new assignment was due and it happened again and all these different things. So I always leave it up to the faculty discretion. But if you see it being a persistent problem, if you see it continuously having those conversations, one of the things that has helped outside of just a chat, you know something, Ricky? Let's set up a Zoom time. Here are my office hours. I'm asking you to come to my Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
This
it
office
has been tried. Yeah, it has been tried. Sometimes they respond, yes, I will show up, and they don't show up. Sometimes they just don't respond.
Exactly. And then you have absolutely within your rights to say, I'm going to submit a Maxime report because all this has been forms of interventions from you. And unfortunately, the student has not been responsive to it. So hopefully this Maxime report, my conversation with them, my letters to them, and like us having this meeting would allow for this to stop or curtail the behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping for, because I don't necessarily want to drop like a large number of students if that's like just a modern technology trend, right?
Yeah.
So, but I want them to be aware that it's not okay, and so yeah, like just me saying them it's not okay sometimes it's not.
Yeah. No.
It's not enough. Yeah.
And I was going to say, I know there's some individuals here who may have worked with me in the past for conduct cases and stuff like that. I'm always available. So if you want to just shoot me a personal email, Teams me even, right, all that good stuff, I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, sit down, kind of go over the nuances of your case and give you some guidance for sure.
That would be fantastic. Well, hopefully I won't have that problem this semester, but last semester it was a problem. Yes.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
No worries. So I know we're at time and I want to be respectful of everyone here. I want to thank you so much for being part of today's presentation. Like I said, I will be sending all of this information over to Tuan and the PD team. So they'll have access to the recording, they'll have access to the presentation and stuff like that. If for whatever reason you can't find it, feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of the PDF presentation, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate you immensely, and I'll be seeing you throughout the year.